This is a two-part problem. Part 1, you have 3 minutes to discuss the problem, create a solution, and practice. In Part 2, you have 4 minutes to test your solution for a score. You can talk to each other and ask the judges questions at any time, but the time will continue. You will be warned when 1 minute and when 30 seconds remain in both sections. There are 3 taped work lines, which are right there. And there's a taped home, which is over here on the floor. And you guys are not allowed to change the tape. There are hats inside the home with values marked on them, and there are pretend cats, which are the eggs, inside a container. And you cannot use the container in your solution.
These are the cats, guys.
Your problem is that you have to move the cats into the hats. There are materials on this table over here for you to use to move the cats, and you are not allowed to damage or change any of the materials with the white labels on them. You aren't allowed to move the cats into the hats by hand, and you can't use anything except the materials. You may practice as you wish in Part 1, and when Part 1 ends, all the hats must be inside the home, and you must place all the cats in their container behind the taped work line. During Part 2, you must be standing behind the tape when you are moving a cat into a hat. In Part 2, you are also not allowed to cross the taped line to retrieve hats or materials, but you are allowed to cross the taped line to retrieve the cats. Hats must be in the taped home area when you move cats into them. And for a cat to count for a score, the hat must be completely in the home, and the cat must be completely in the hat. You can ask to be scored at any time, and the competition is over when you ask to be scored or when the time ends. You will be scored as follows. The cats will receive the value of the hats that they rest in when Part 2 ends. You will receive 1 to 15 points for your creative use of materials, and you will receive 1 to 15 points for how well your team works together. So, what did you get out of that? I know it's a lot. In Part 1, you can cross the line, but in Part 2, you have to stand behind it.
So we can move the cats into the house with the materials for the first time?
Yep. Yeah, for the first section, you use the materials, figure out what works. For the second section, you actually move the cats.
So we're supposed to move the cats in Part 1 too?
You can, yeah, with practice. And they actually count in Part 2. Yeah. Part 1 is practice, Part 2 is for points. All right.